Hey, what's up? In this episode, we are going to look at the bread and butter of where to get 3D characters for Cinedesign for Cinema 4D. Now, we have looked at the ones that come with the content pack, so like content browser stuff. We looked at like the two human models that come with Studio. Not everyone has Studio. Not everyone gets those models. They're pretty good. There's other ways to get them. You can go to Google. I always call it Google. You can go to SketchUp Warehouse. There's some cruddy, bad looking 3D models of people in there. You can start with that. If you want extremely, and I don't recommend this at all. You can go to Turbo Squid. There's some models there. I would not buy those just yet. I do recommend 3D Scan Store models though. Those are gorgeous. They're good priced if you're using the single license, which I believe we are allowed to use because it's not, we're not selling them, we're not putting them in products, we're using them to plan stuff. It's a different idea. Those are great, and eventually I will show you how to rig them to move. But honestly, even them in their natural poses, if you're putting them on a white cyc, if you're putting them in a room to just kind of look at how the lighting looks on a very realistic human being, Scan Store is pretty much the only place online that I can personally recommend, having used them quite a bit and knowing the person that runs it, James, very well. That company is trustworthy, and I definitely recommend buying some 3D scans from there if you want realistic, uber realistic human beings, which is always fun. But what I'm going to show you today, and I'm starting it up now, is called Adobe Fuse. And Adobe Fuse is really the backbone of where we get not free, but pretty I consider them pretty much free 3D human beings, and you can customize them like it's a video game. So here we are in Adobe Fuse, and the way you get Adobe Fuse is you use the Adobe Creative Cloud. So if you are legit using Photoshop, Premiere, InDesign, Illustrator, After Effects, you should be using the cloud because it's like $50 a month for all of those pieces of software. If you're a creative professional and you make your money doing that, easily worth the money. Photoshop's going to be really important for doing Cinedesign too, so I'm sorry to tell you that you really do need to be on the Adobe Cloud to be doing the full workflow. I'll put that in the literature online. I should put that up there. But you can do it without it, but I really consider it part of the workflow. And just I think you should be happy, and I'm telling you to be happy because a couple years ago, none of this was possible. SketchUp Warehouse didn't integrate with Cinema very well back then, nor Maya. So those models were a lot of work to get them to work. Now they're very simple. Boom, 3D Scan Store. I don't know when it started existing. I wasn't aware of it. 3D scan models for like $50, done. And then also now Fuse, if you use Photoshop, Fuse is free. You get this for free. So let's do some quick Fuse modeling. It's a video game creator. So if you didn't play video games as a kid, what's wrong with you? Why don't you play video games? So it's like if you played Skyrim or any video game like that, we're in a character creation screen here. Okay, so we pick a head, and we can actually start changing her features, which I'm not going to do right now. And then you pick a body. It's just like a video game. I'm going to pick a leg, a lot of legs. You're going to pick a hand, pick arms. Oh, there's a very nice looking human being model, isn't it now? Wouldn't it be cool to previsit this? We're going to be doing that really soon. So now you can go through, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but like things you want to do, you can go to legs, and you can make them tall or short. If you want to get into her other characteristics, you can start to change like her belly, her chest, her face. You can just you can just go start pulling stuff around. You can do it with sliders here. It's really good, and there's really no other product that does this, and it's free with Adobe Creative Cloud. It's free with Adobe Creative Cloud. Okay, so let's go to clothing. These are amazing clothing, and they look really nice in Cinema. Here's the other thing, is that these, when you bring them into Cinema 4D, look really good, versus Maya, they look terrible. I don't know why. I tried really hard. They don't look good. They look great in Cinema, in my opinion. So let's just keep plowing through this. I'm not going to spend a ton of time, though I usually spend a lot of time it's fun to make characters here. Skinny pants. Let's do some skinny pants. Kind of some boy clothes. Feel like you're clothes are too very boy-like right now. Maybe I'll put you in some rolled shorts. Yeah, little summery, right? A little bit more fun. Did I forget hair? Oh no, hair comes in here. We do hair here. Okay. Look at that. That looks great. I cannot wait to put that person in a scene and start pre-visiting like a summer drinking lemonade commercial. You know what I mean? That's what we do. That's what I do anyway for a living. Maybe you guys don't do lemonade commercials for a living, but I do. Here's some flats, and you're like, oh, I wish the colors were a little bit different and stuff like that. You can change the colors. It's really easy. We're gonna get there. Sorry, I'm acting kind of weird right now. I just drank some tea, and tea is a lot of caffeine for me. I stopped drinking coffee, so I have to drink tea now. Tea is a more like even high, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, It's too much personal talk, Matt. Let's put on the alpha ponytail. I use this haircut quite a bit. You've probably seen this exact model in my advertising for Cine Designer probably. But just know that if you get more advanced, or you're a studio that's using this to plan shoots, and so you already have a couple like pretty good 3D artists, they don't talk about this a ton, but Adobe gives you a pretty good workflow and documentation on how you add more stuff to this. How do you add shoes? How do you add hair? How do you clothing to this ecosystem? You can extend it yourself. Now, I could do that too. I just spend more time making lights and cameras because that's kind of my specialty. But it's not that difficult once you learn ZBrush, or you can actually paint in Cinema 4D. It's really good. Sculpt. I haven't shown you that. I probably will eventually. You can make hair. It's not as hard as you think, and I could show you. Am I going to show you how to 3D model hair and sculpt hair? I could. It's kind of beyond the scope of it, but if you are a proficient 3D artist, it's really easy to extend this ecosystem of stuff, and you have a free human character generator. So we're making humans really easy. Google SketchUp Warehouse to find props, Cine Designer for your camera stuff. Guys, we got everything. We're good to go. Oh, so we got hats. No hats. Some other stuff that's not. I'm not going to use it right now. And then I'm just going to quickly get through this. Hopefully, if you click her shirt, you can go to standard material here, and you can change the type of material it is. I'm not going to go through all of these. I really think that you should spend some time playing around. That's really ugly. You can change the color here. This is kind of a buggy slider in my opinion. But yeah, so there's an outfit, and we change it. Do the same thing with the shoes, pants. You get the idea. So how do we get this into Cinema 4D? We're going to do that right now. So you can save to your CC library, because you can actually open these 3D models in Photoshop and look at them in 3D and light them in Photoshop in 3D. But for now, Cinema 4D is the workflow I'm going to recommend. I can't say anything more. Let's hit save to Mixamo. Let's do Cine Design female. Okay, we're gonna hit save, and it's exporting model to temporary file. So let's wait for it to save an OBJ that it's gonna upload to the Creative Cloud. Exporting model to temporary file. We're just gonna hang out. Now it's uploading 8 megabytes. If you've got a terrible internet connection, go get Verizon Files or something. I don't know what to tell you. Preparing model for rigging. So what's going to happen now is it is going to open up Chrome, and it's going to bring you to Mixamo.com, who is kind of the company that is behind all of this, but Adobe and they merged / Adobe bought them. And again, you need to be having an Adobe Creative Cloud account to do this. So you'll see that I am logged into mine up here, Matthew. If you guys that don't know, that's my name. So I'm just gonna sit through this process real time, because I think I do want to take you through this step by step and just really just like hold your hand through this whole process, because I don't want you to get stuck somewhere and be like, oh, Matt said this works and it's at the backbone of Cine Design and it doesn't work. I just want to show you exactly how it works. So there might be a little bit of dead time here, but what other software dev will take the time to sit with you while Adobe Auto-Rigger works? I don't know many. So you'll see here that now she's moving, right? So they've rigged her. They put bones inside of her model, and now you can animate those things. Don't change any of these defaults. Don't mess with that. Unless you think you're cool. Think you know something? Think you know more than me about that? Don't do it. Unless you're going into like a different GCC or you're going to Unity or something like that, you can change it, but I would not. So do view it. Now, here's the two things. You can actually apply motion capture data to them, so you can make them dance, you can make them run, you can have all this stuff. You don't have to animate a thing. You can do that, bring it into Cinema, and they're just dancing, and they're moving already, and it's like, I'm doing like next level work. Let's hold off on that just yet. Let's deal with the basics. View in my assets. Now it looks kind of bad in this viewport. It looks really good in Cinema, I promise. I'll show you how to do that. So do Q download, FBX and T-pose. Yes, Q download. You'll see that here's my basketball players that I made for my demo, for my marketing demo. I have like a lot of characters, and you can save all of them, and it's free with Adobe Cloud, guys. This is crazy. Let's download this. It's downloading. It's downloading. It's downloading. Again, this might be boring for other people, but for others, it might feel good to be like, Matt's going to show me exactly how to do this. That's what I'm doing. I want to show you exactly how I do it. So that's it. You do need an Adobe Creative Cloud account up here. That's what this needs. Legit. Legit. Too legit to quit. Okay, so here's our Cinedesign female.fbx. FBX is an Autodesk file format, I think. I use it a lot with Autodesk to exchange file formats, and it's really good. And guess what? I was going to say Blender. Cinema 4D does a great job of bringing it in. So again, you should be organizing this into your content browser. I haven't showed you how to do that yet. Maybe you can just figure it out or Google around on it. Put it in your content browser. Stay organized. The more stuff you have, the more quickly that you can bring it in, the faster this process is, and the more fun it is, and the more you can do, cine design and lighting and camera work, and less of like, where did I put that model? Oh, I don't have a model of a chair. Go get models of chairs. Get stuff that you know you're going to need. Build your database. We're going to call this character 1. Don't put it on your desktop like I'm doing, but you have to put it in a folder because you'll see that it kind of like spits out a bunch of files when you do that. So let's open up Cinema. So that's Fuse. You can actually save this creation file, but it's honestly so quick and easy to make the characters that I don't typically save them. Maybe I should be. I don't know. Let's open up Cinema. So we will be right back when this is done loading. Okay, so we are in Cinema now. So let's import our person. We're going to go to Merge. I think this is the way to do it. Pretty sure. Desktop character 1. There it is. Boom. Geometry, curves, markers, tracks. This is all fine. That's fine. Textures and materials. Make sure you have that on. Hit OK. There it is. Our ghostly figure of a person. You're like, what the am I looking at, Matt? You told me these look good in Cinema. Just hold on. Okay. So what we have to do is, oh, you know what? My little video's down here, isn't it? So I'll move my little video over to the center so that you can deal with this. Should have covered textures before this episode because textures are a thing. But let me just show you the quick and dirty way of fixing this. Click the hair. Everything is transparent. I don't know why the transparency maps are broken in Cinema. They were broken in Maya too. I'm going to figure out how to fix them, but for now I'm going to just turn them off. So each one of these textures we need to select and turn off transparency. So select this hair material, hit basic, transparency checkbox, no. That's it. Shoes mat, transparency, no. Body mat, transparency, no. Bottom mat, yeah, let's leave the pants see-through or not. And then we're going to do the top material. No comments on that. Her eyelashes, maybe I'm just a noob at Cinema 4D. I don't know how to make the alpha mats work now. It's not a big deal. Delete. So she doesn't have eyelashes. Cry me a river. So let's look at this model. Really nice model. And it's like, oh, why is it shaped kind of weird? It has a normal map. So when you hit render, extra detail gets added to it. So that allows you to have the viewport be a nice low-res model that moves around very quickly. But when you hit render, the extra detail comes back. So like when we were looking at Turbo Squid, it's like, hey, let's bake in 500,000 polygons and send it off to people to buy. It's actually a pain in the ass, guys. Give me a low poly model with a normal map for F's sake. Come on. That's what they gave you here. Can I illustrate this to you now? So like look at her face now, and then we'll hit render. Can you see like a little bit of detail got added to it? That's a normal map. Way beyond the scope of what I'm going to be teaching you right now. But after many, many years of having to learn everything about 3D to build what I've built, I've had to deal with every facet of 3D. So those are normal maps. You get them for free. You don't have to worry about it. So what we're going to do now is I'll show you the workflow for this. So you're going to do that to the textures. If you want to make the eye reflections more realistic, I'll have to show you that in a different episode. Maybe we will do an episode on how to get realistic eye reflections and eye lights because that's kind of important sometimes. I'll show you how to add eye reflections to a Fuse model and how to add eye reflections to a 3D ScanStore model. Both of these models need to have something added to them to get correct eye lights. Both of these will not render eye lights correctly at this point. And maybe in narrative stuff, it's really important to be like, does the Chimera here cast an eye light? Does it do it here? We can tell you that. So for students of cinematography who want to learn how to do eye lights, which it took me a long time to understand, how does an eye light work? How do I get it? How do I not get it? I'll show you in Cinedesigner in another tutorial. So here we are. We have our nice model, and what you don't want to do is start animating on it or do anything to this one, because you're going to save this one and then keep re-importing it. So we're going to grab all of these things, Alt-G, let's call you whatever you want to call this, character 1. And we're going to save this. Save it in the same folder that you save that. Man, my naming conventions are on point today. They're just all different names for this. I'm just going to call it character 1. Call it something better than that. So now you have this model. We killed the dynamic, we killed the transparencies. So now you just keep importing her over and over again, and you won't break this original file, and that's good. So we're going to save, and I'm going to close and start a new one. Then I'm going to Apple Shift O, which is merge. I'm going to make sure that I'm actually merging. Apple Shift O is merge. Bring her back in. But now you're not editing that original file, so you can break this, and you can experiment. Oops. So let me show you how you pose her. Now, in Maya and 3D Max, there's a program that you click, and it automatically puts a nice little rig on her, so she's easy to puppet. We don't have that in Cinema 4D. I considered spending a month to write it myself, but I'm not going to. It's not within the scope of my company. And then, although I could sell it, if someone else makes it for free, which I think they should, then that's a waste of time for my brand to do that. I'd rather be building better lighting rigs, things that make your life better as a DP. Someone needs to make the characters a little bit easier. So what we're seeing here, this is all geometry. So that's the 3D model of this person, and it's really nice. It would take you at least 4 years, depending on your level and artistic background, to be able to make a human this realistic. I could probably make this human in about 2 days. In ZBrush, in Maya, which is I'm much faster in Maya than I am in Cinema. I could make this model. And I learned enough about anatomy. I learned enough about how to make humans for games, for high res. It took a lot of workshops with really high level character artists. I can make this level stuff because I had to back in the day. There was no Adobe Fuse. But just know that it would take you 2 to 4 years to learn how to do this, because that's how long it took me. And I had a pretty decent art background in drawing and painting and whatnot. So all to say that all this geometry is very high level, very optimized, gorgeous normal maps. Don't even bother ever trying to do this stuff unless you want to spend 2 to 4 years learning how to. Adobe Fuse is free. Here are how you're going to control it. So this is going to suck for people that are afraid of, that are new to 3D, but I'm sorry, this is how it works. Open up all these chains and just look at them, okay? Look at the names. There's hips, spine, neck, left shoulder, left leg, blah, blah, blah. Keep looking at them. Keep going deeper into them. Sadly, this is how we have to work. It's not so bad, but it's not so good either. So what we're essentially going to do is be rotating these things. None of them are moving. They're all rotation joints. So say we want to put her arms down. You have to go to left shoulder or left arm and rotate the arm down. Not too bad. Now, depending on how your mindset on how shoulder rigs are done, you should play with this too a little bit. I'm not going to go into character animation just yet. Put her arm down. I grabbed the shoulder and I rotated it down. That's that. It's not super elegant. It's not super fast. If I want to give her arm a little bit of a bend, and you can get all the way down to the fingers. And again, you're just rotating these things one by one. And this is called the forward kinematics, and it's the slow way of animating. And I don't recommend animating these rigs at all. You could try it. I wouldn't. Just don't do it. So here we go. Moving your arm up. Now this is not so bad. It's really not so bad for pose to pose. Again, we're not getting into character animation as cine designers. It's really beyond the scope of what we should be spending our time on. Although it would make it fun and cool, and the previous companies will have that over you, realistic human character animation, it's just not our deal. It's not our soup. Unfortunately, we don't have a hip control, so if she has to sit down, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And what I would recommend is you actually can never move, I believe, never move this hips joint, ever. I think you can rotate it and that sort of thing. So let's look how you would move the head. If you want to have her look in different places, that's important. But just never move the hip joint, the hip rig. something weird happens. I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't even want to show you because it kind of bugs out. Just don't move the hips. Don't move the hips. If you want to move her, grab the top character level, that top character group, and move her. And so if you want to make her sit, let's make a quick bench for you. I know this is like not on the ground or whatever, but we're gonna grab her. You're gonna move her butt like this, like that, kind of where it would be. This is not great. I know this is not a great workflow. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's other ways to do it. If there is, let me know. Share with the community how we do this better. This is how I see doing it at this point. You gotta go like this, and then I'm gonna grab this. It's not so bad. It's not so good. Depends on where you're coming from in the world. At least it's straightforward and it's consistent, and the model looks great. But as far as controlling this is not how I like to do characters. But you know, she's sitting now. Not bad. But that's the workflow of creating an Adobe Fuse character. Awesome. Having it auto-rigged. That would have taken you another year to learn how to rig a character. Trust me, it takes a long time to learn the rig characters. It does it automatically. You can apply animation to this, and then you bring it into Cinema 4D, save it as its own file. You're going to put it in its own group, because that's how you have to move the character, is by moving the group. Turn off transparency on all textures, delete the eyelashes, delete anything that looks wrong because of transparency. Just get rid of it. It's going to be okay. If you figure out how to get the transparencies to work, let me know. That's cool. I'd love to, if you could share that with me, I will make a video tutorial on it to share with the community. That would be lovely. And then get into these joints here, these green bones icons, and rotating. We're rotating them. Don't move them. If you move them, bad stuff is going to go down. Just rotate them. Just be careful. Just be careful in there. If you break it, delete it, bring in a new one. Start again. Not a big deal. So that is our look at Adobe Fuse. What I'm going to do to wrap this out is just drop a big old light on you, son. Her feet are in the ground. Whatever. That's cool. That's the kind of scene I'm making. That's the kind of scene I made. Let's bring in my big old 12 by. I do a lot of studio stuff, so I like 12 bys. 12 by is kind of like the smallest light I ever use. And like I said in other videos, it don't really matter what's behind it. It's just a 12 by. You got to get over that. You can go back and show your crew what's going to be behind it, but as far as visualizing the light coming out of it, it don't matter. It just doesn't matter what's behind this light. The light is just a 12 by. It's an area light. So this brightness, I can tell already, is a bit big. Oh man, I can show so much. When I have to start getting into teaching about actual lighting and real world lighting, there's so many principles that apply here that I can show you that you can't, it's really hard to show any other way. So like a light that's bright, like this, it's big. When it's close, because of the inverse square law, look at the blown out part of the floor. You'll never get that. You'll never get rid of that. That's not wrong in the program. The program's very accurate. It's like this in the real world. Things close to lights blow out really quickly. So what you do is you use a bigger light and you pull it far away, and now the fall off is much subtler. That's a high level cinematography thing to truly understand. And it's really quite easy to illustrate in CineDesigner what it would look like to do that, to execute that concept. So this feels a little bit dark to me. 90,000. 100,000. There's even more than 100,000. No, it's 100,000. So let's render this out and let's look at our Fuse character in a wide. Render, render, render. And again, look at the damn stupid speed of this thing. It's so fast. That is a fast render and it looks really good. There's no global illumination on, but this is why I use Cinema 4D and this is why I use Adobe Fuse characters. That looks great and that was instant. So if you want to change it, make a new one, boom, no big deal. No big deal at all. Let me show you one thing. This is going beyond the scope of Adobe Fuse characters, and it's going beyond the scope of what I wanted to talk about in the near future, actually. But some high-level stuff. Sky. Bring in the sky. A sky object. And guess what a sky does? A sky lights like the sky. It's pretty good. It's a good cheat, too. Make a new material, put it on the floor. Make a new material, put it on the sky. Now, I'll just talk about it really briefly. This floor goes on forever. Although you only see like a little bit of it, it goes on forever. It's very nice. Very nice thing to give. I'm actually going to cheat and bring it down so I can see her feet so it doesn't look ridiculous. And then the sky actually lights from all directions, like a big area light from all directions. So it's basically as much of an ambient as you could ever have in the world. That's an ambient light in 3D. So easy. So good. And this talks to how you visualize lighting outside too. So what I'm going to do now to wrap up this episode is I'm going to turn on GI, which is how the sky doesn't light without GI. And I'm going to turn on AO. ambient occlusion. Google it. We'll talk about it later. Oh, I lost my person. I'm not even going to go frame up with a, what's it called? A real camera. I'm just going to use this. And let's set this off as a render. And that will be our look at Adobe Fuse and a little bit more into the power of lighting in the system, how fast it is, how nice it is. And in future episodes, I'm not sure when, we're going to start to talk about more in depth about the lighting system and how you rapidly iterate and illustrate massively different lighting situations. And it's a little bit different than working in the real world. It's a lot better. I wish the real world was like this. That would be very cool. Let's hit render. Let's render it up. So this is, again, a pretty fast GI calculation. Now, her hands are stuck in the bench. And I hate when my hands get stuck in the bench like that. I'm at work and I'm having a sandwich and then my hands are stuck in the bench. It sucks. It's really sad. You know, this is a PSA for that. Oh, so this is blown out. I'm going to have to re-render this. Sorry. A little bit bright. Oh, way too bright. I blew out the shirt. But this talks, oh, you know why? It's because we turned on the sky. So the sky plus our 12 by, it's too much exposure. So I'm actually going to bring down the exposure on the sky and I'm going to show you that. So we're doing a little bit more advanced lighting today than I was planning on, but that's cool. I want to do justice to the Adobe Fuse characters because this is kind of like an ideal lighting setup for them. So that looks great, doesn't it? That looks really good. And that would be a lot of fill light. So you're either exterior and you have, I would say, at least 1 to 18K going through that 12 by frame to get that kind of exposure. Or we're in a studio and we're building ambience with space lights and it's probably like a 10K or 20K through the 12 by diffusion. And now this is what I'm starting to talk about choosing the lights that go through the diffusion. That's up to you as the DP and for you to understand how the scenario, how you would achieve this in the real world. That's up to you to understand that, but you can visualize it here. I hope you're starting to understand the difference here. This is better to visualize than it is to be like, oh, well, the 12K doesn't have enough stop. I need to go delete the 12K and bring in a 20K. That would suck. And it's slow. And no director is going to appreciate that, trust me. But they will appreciate the broad strokes of, well, what if we make the light a little bit sidier? So let's do that. Let's make this 12 by a little bit sidier from over here. I'm going to rotate it. And the director's also now being like, you know, that ambient light is too bright. I don't like how bright the ambient is. We're going to click this texture here. That was the sky. That's the sky texture. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag down the value. So you'll see that in the environment it's getting darker. And now it is also going to emit less light. So advanced stuff here. Don't worry if you're lost. We will be dealing with this later because we haven't covered textures yet. That's going to have to come up next. But textures really are not difficult, but I just haven't covered them. So what do? We lowered the ambient light level with the sky object, and we made the light sidier. High-level cinematography concepts here. This almost feels like it's going to be too dark. High level, meaning what is the final output, not what did it take to get there. Now, we have a bit of it because there's the 12 by source and its distance to her and its brightness relative to other things. That's high-level cinematography. That's how you would work on a high-level set. What goes behind that light, that's up to your crew on a big enough movie. Now, in Cine Designer, as I'm going to talk about this as rendering, you can put whatever you want behind it to illustrate that, but that's all it is an illustration. Just like a 2D lighting diagram from above doesn't actually light the scene, in a way, with diffusion at least, we're not actually lighting the scene with the lights either. We're lighting it with the diffusion frame. So it's one step better, but it's not a simulation. Now, when we get into Arnold and Octane and other things, we can start to simulate a 12K through a frame. But like I've said in other videos, it sucks. It's not fun. It's really slow, and then it's like, oh, I don't have enough light, so I got to go add another one. That's not fun. That's not fast and creative. It's not a great way of visualizing a tool quickly. What's going to start to happen is like the director's like, okay, so now this is a little bit two-sided. Can you bring it back? You want to deal with that and not have to deal with the back end of it. After you nail down the creative parts, the high-level cinematography, then you can go back and illustrate. Let's put two 12Ks behind it. Let's put one 5K. Let's put one 2K. That's where you start to illustrate it. Now, when you're doing hard direct sources, picking the right light source matters because of the Fresnel size, the throw. That stuff starts to matter. But with diffusion specifically, and I feel like most DPs use 8 by frames, 12 by frames, 20 by frames to key and light with a lot of the times, it's high level. We're not having to worry about what's behind it. You're just worried about the size. You can change the color. You can change its position, its distance. All that stuff is very accurate, but what's behind it, don't worry about it. So Adobe Fuse characters, gorgeous. Gorgeous, man. Awesome. So good. Lighting them looks good. The textures look good. Just turn off the transparency. Save that file. Now you have essentially, I consider them free. I know it's not free if you can't afford $50 a month or whatever, but you can basically get, here, you can go get Adobe Cloud for a month for $50. Go make 50 characters, download it, stop your subscription. Done. You have these characters for life. Don't break them. If you get rid of your subscription, you now have Adobe Fuse characters for life. They're going to always work in Cinema 4D. They render gorgeously in the native renderer, and they're going to look good in Octane, and they're going to look good in V-Ray and Arnold if you're going to go that route. And in future episodes we're getting into a little bit more advanced stuff. If you want to now change her shirt and put a logo on it, you want to make her hair a different color, you want to change her jean color, we can actually do that in Photoshop, and I'll show you how to do that. If you want to add custom stuff, like say you're doing a Target commercial or something, and you want to make that shirt now look exactly like a shirt that they gave you in the comp, we can do that. If you're a fashion photographer and you picked the closest thing that Adobe had to what you're shooting, but it's not quite right and you want to change it, I'll show you how to do that. It's a little bit more advanced. It's more 3D stuff than it is cinematography teaching stuff, but it's important. I hope you can start to see that, like, look, that's a nice looking character. There's some clothing. Fashion commercials, fashion photo shoots, very easy to visualize lighting. What does a certain prop look like next to this person? How big of a cyc wall do I need? Crane moves. You can see we're planning real shoots right here. It looks real. CineDesign, Adobe Fuse. It's a beautiful thing in Cinema 4D. So that's a look at Fuse, and that's kind of going to wrap it up for this series that has been about getting characters, getting 3D assets. I've showed you the places that I use online to get my assets, both free and paid, depending on what you're working on. And I've shown you the basics of CineDesigner R1. We're going to be adding to this like crazy. I'm probably going to take a break on this series for a tiny bit and work on some other stuff. But I hope that this has gotten you through to the point where you're able to visualize your shoot. You're going to have questions. You're going to have things that you don't know how to do. And that's good. Keep learning on your own. If you're an R1 customer, email me directly and I'll get back to you. Eventually, I'm going to have a better support system kind of going for that. But right now, my documentation and support system are these YouTube videos. And I hope that I've illustrated how to do some really things that were advanced and difficult in the past that are very easy now. Bringing in characters, modeling a room, using the camera dolly, using the lights that are, I love them. I think they're really fun rigs to light with at a high level. And you can visualize cinematography. That's R1, guys. This is the workflow. You just saw the whole thing. Model rooms yourself, bring in characters, put the camera in, put the lights in, hit render, send to your clients, make money. I'll see you guys on the next episode. I don't know what we're going to cover, but just know that this rabbit hole goes much deeper. Oh, you know what we're going to get into? We're going to get into craft-specific stuff. I do feel responsible to show you, if you are a tabletop DP, how to do this for tabletop. We're going to have to get into textures, reflections. How do you do glass? How do you do reflective, shiny things if you're going to do an iPad commercial that's spinning? How do you visualize macro lenses and periscopes? I don't have any periscopes in this right now, but I'm going to put all the periscopes there are. There's not that many. So you'll be able to accurately know how close to get the periscope to the lens, to the object, that sort of stuff. And then how to visualize lighting in a tabletop. For food, for products, we'll get there. See, Cinema 4D for this, CineDesigner, perfect for tabletop people. I do a tabletop. I use it all the time. Motion control. We're going to have to talk about motion control. We can visualize it, but if you're talking about going from this exactly into the crane, we'll have to talk about what that means. It depends on the crane. Fashion photography. I think that this is really good for fashion photographers and fashion DPs that are doing very art-directed and kind of simple sets usually. Simple fashion stuff. You want to really pick the main key angle. That's like the main thing. Pick the focal length, show the framing, maybe even try to do a camera move and show your agency that. Really easy. So we'll do white cyc stuff. Commercial stuff, I do a lot of that too. And then eventually exteriors and location work, like for a feature or for a TV and type interviews. Those are honestly a little bit more work because you have to model the location in a way. And then you have to deal with like making daylight coming through windows, like my window back here. How would you visualize that light? All the things I just mentioned, that's a little bit more work because you have to model the location and do it completely doable. I can teach you to do it very quickly, but those are craft specific things that I know that I think people want to see. Oh, and the last thing, not the last, but also music videos. How would you visualize a music video in a club with like spotlights that have like haze and they're moving, and you're using Kino flows and mixing colored lights and a techno crane moving a dolly and set pieces and extras. You know, how do we visualize all this stuff? All possible. Even with just R1, I promise you, you can visualize almost any of those things really well with the workflows I've shown you for getting assets, for getting characters, and how you move them around. You're not going to have like perfect animation or anything like that, but you can visualize at a level that I know was never possible before. That's Cine Designer R1. This is the workflow, guys. If it's a little overwhelming to you, just watch the series again, sleep on it, think about it. Get this down, because when we get to R2, which is going to be a while, R1, we're going to be here for a bit. We're going to add to it. I'm going to get you all the stuff that you personally need to make this work. When we get to R2 and we switch up into the next level of this, you want to have this stuff down. Have your clients familiar with this, because then when you take it to the next level, I'm talking about real time. We're talking about looking at this. There's no rendering. When you change the light, I'm just looking at it. I can focus to you. I'll focus to the background. Like, there's a lot of things we can do, but this is the foundation. This is why I spent so much time making these tutorial videos. These take a long time to make, as you might know if you've ever tried to make something like this before. But I really want to invest in the first R1 users so that you guys get this, you become profitable with this technique, with this software. Because training like this could easily be $1,500 for a course for something like this. I know that this is a new practice, but I know for a fact that training at this level, with the value that this can provide to you, this course that I just made could have been very expensive. But I'm investing in you. I'm giving it back. I want you guys to learn this stuff, really get good at it, because where we're going, we're moving fast, we're moving furious. It's going to be really good. What we can do with Cine Design is massive, and there's even implications for moving from your traditional cinematography skills, using it for planning, moving directly into virtual production, into virtual reality production. With the 3D skills you have here, you can start to produce in 3D, and that's the final output. That's something I haven't talked about in the literature all that much, but a real-world DP, you have sensibilities that 3D animators don't have. You have sensibilities that 3D modelers don't have because you've been on set. You understand storytelling in the real world, and when you apply that to virtual worlds, that's needed. I would guess that of the younger people who start learning cine design while they're in college learning filmmaking, half of those people will go on to be cinematographers. Half of those people will move on to being virtual cinematographers, where they're like, you know what, I like working in the computer here. I like the control. But I'm giving you that power as cinematographers to give you tools that feel like real world light so that you can transition into virtual cinematography if that's what you wanted to do. You don't have to. That might sound really scary to you, but as you do this more and more and you render better quality, and I'll show you how to get to that uncanny valley with these humans and what you're rendering, it starts to look real. You can make money doing that, of course. Of course, lighting in 3D is going to make money. You can do product visualization, ArcViz. There's a lot of things you can do with your filmmaking cinematography knowledge that can be applied to 3D. Cine Designer is that bridge for you, and I've kind of mentioned that before, but here's the first time I've really got into it. We won't get into that too much until a little bit later, probably until this stuff looks like absolutely photoreal, which I will personally get you to that point. But for now, let's use it for planning. That alone is going to be very powerful, but just know that there's a lot of things coming down the pipeline. I'm pretty close in there with NVIDIA, the Oculus team, the guys that are doing a lot of that new stuff out there, especially in the video game space. If you're like me, and I know this is getting really ranty at the end, skip it. If you're done with the tutorial, that's cool. If you want to know a little bit more about where we're going. I wanted to do video games back in the day, but I went into live action because it was a little bit more fun. 3D back then was really cumbersome. Now, we can do video game production on our own. I'm not going to like teach you a course on indie video game production, though I've kind of made my own already. It's really easy. Making a good one's hard, but the mechanics of just making a video game, not that hard. This tool set that I'm giving you here will work very well for that also. There's a lot of things coming down the pipeline, guys, where your real world cinematography mixed with understanding Cine Designer and this being a bridge to 3D for you, opening doors here. We're opening doors for the future. You don't have to go down those doors, but the doors are open nonetheless. That is it. Adobe Fuse. This is the Cine Designer workflow. I'll see you guys later.